Only buy what you can afford with cash. Notice how I said that. I said buy what you can afford with cash. With cash doesn't mean that you need to use physical cash. It means you can't buy something if you don't have the money for it. Don't go out and finance that Gucci if you don't get the money for it. And just because it's 0% APR doesn't mean you have the cash. Buy it with cash and buy what you afford means just because you have $100 in your bank account does not mean that you can afford a $100 pair of shoes. Buying what you afford means, well, buying something comfortably. For me, if it's a luxury that I don't need, I like to follow a rule of 5, which says if I can't buy 5 of them, I can't afford 1 of them. See, there's a difference between being able to buy something and be able to afford something, and in today's economy, it is very easy to be able to buy whatever you want. You can buy things to make you look rich. BMWs, fancy clothes, fancy vacations, because everybody's got lines of credit to extend to you. But when you do that, you are making somebody else rich so you can look rich. Everybody wants a secret sauce on how you can make millions of dollars, but the reality is you gotta have money, put it aside, and then grow that money. That way you can build wealth. And the only way that you can do that is if you don't spend all of your money. And that means you gotta keep some money and maybe downsize some of the expenses. That way you can actually live within your means so you have money to invest, which brings me to number 2. Rule number 2 is prioritize assets over liabilities. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Your vacation is a liability. Your clothes are liabilities. Your car is a liability. And yes, when I say buy things with cash, I want you to buy your car with cash as well. The only exception with this would be your home. But now, if you want to build wealth, like what I just said, you have to prioritize the investments, the assets, things that are going to put money into your pocket. There's a couple hacks that you can do here, especially if you're getting started with investing. Number 1 is buy what you're already spending money on. So this is not financial advice, but if you're spending money at Apple, buying AirPods, buying iPhones, well, then you could use some of the money to go out and buy the Apple company. If you're going to spend $1,000 at Apple, spend $200 buying some of the company. Just like that, before you go out and buy a home to live in, think about buying a rental property first. And you might say, well, Jaspreet, how am I supposed to do that? Well, there's also ways for you to house hack. I mean, you can buy a duplex, live in one unit and rent out the other. Or you can buy a home to live in, and then after a year, you can move out and rent that home to somebody else. It's all about being clever, but the goal is you got to prioritize the assets over your liabilities. Now, the other part that you want to pay attention to here is not overpaying in fees, because small fees on your investments can also destroy your portfolio. For example, if you're working with a financial planner, you have to pay fees. The problem is most Americans have no idea of how much money they're paying in fees. For example, do you know how much a teeny tiny little 0.85% fee is going to cost you over your career? It's not going to cost you $10,000 or $100,000 or $500,000, but it can cost you over $1 million in fees. By the way, if you have a 401k, you're also paying fees. That fee is called an expense ratio. So you might want to take a couple minutes after this video to go and check what your expense ratio is on your 401k funds as well. The third money rule is that your time is valuable. Here's a fun exercise you might want to try next time you want to buy something. If you wanted to go out and buy this $3,000 very nice watch, and let's assume that you make $20 an hour. See, the real cost of this watch is not $3,000. The cost of your watch is 150 hours of your life plus tax. And this is where you got to decide, is this watch worth the 150 hours? But that's not all. See, time is one of the most valuable tools that you have when it comes to building wealth, because it gives your money time to grow and compound. And what I mean by that is, well, Warren Buffett's wealth really grew and accelerated after his 50th birthday. He was rich before 50, but after 50, he became incredibly wealthy. And the reason why is because now he had a lot of money that was working for him. And this is where the more time you give your money to compound and grow, the wealthier you'll become. See, the thing when it comes to investing is when anybody starts investing, you're not going to have a lot of money because you're just getting started. And so year 1, you don't have that much money working for you. Year 2, not that much. Year 3, not that much. Year 4, a little bit more. Year 10, now you have a significant amount. And now when it comes to year 10, well, now you have a lot more money working to grow. A 10% return on $100,000 is a lot more money than a 10% return on $1,000, because 10% return on $1,000 is just $100. But a 10% return on $100,000 is $10,000. And a 10% return on $1 million is $100,000. You might have heard the saying that if you can double a penny every single day for 30 days, you'd have $5 million. But the interesting thing is, if you just add one more day, now you have $10 million. If you add one more day, now you have $20 million. You can start to see that when you have more money working for you, you can grow that money a whole lot faster. But in order to have that, you got to let your money grow in the first place. This is why time is so important, because if you don't give yourself time, you're never going to get the real big rewards. And those real big rewards only happen after you've given your money time to compound and grow. And now, once you've built that wealth, now growing that wealth can grow a whole lot faster because you have more money working to grow. Remember, 10% on $1 million is a lot more than 10% on $1,000. But in order to get to that million, you got to give your money some time to compound and grow. Money rule number 4 is those who are prepared build wealth. You might have heard me talking about the importance of being financially prepared. And in my game, financially prepared means having a savings cushion to protect you against an emergency, but also having cash aside to be able to capitalize an opportunity. So let me start with the cushion to protect you, because the reality is sometimes things will happen. Your company might go bankrupt. You might lose your job. Something happens to your business. Something happens to your kids. Something happens to you. Something happens to your car, and you need money. If you don't have any money saved up and you got to go into credit card debt, it's like taking 10 steps backwards. But if you can work to put aside some savings, that's not working to grow and build your wealth. It's there to protect you. Well, now when something bad goes wrong, because eventually something bad will go wrong, you have some cash there to fall back on. If you lose your job, you don't have an income, well, you don't got to go into debt because you still have money to eat. But the second part of being prepared, this is where the real wealth is built, is you have this cash to be able to capitalize on an investment opportunity. When the 2020 pandemic hit, people didn't have money, and it was sad. But the reality is the people that had money and were financially educated were able to make a killing. I was able to buy stocks for pennies on the dollar because the stock market was crashing so fast, but that only was there for the people that had access to money. When the 2008 crash happened, it was the same thing. The people that had money were able to buy stocks for a huge discount. People were able to come in and buy real estate at a huge discount. I started buying real estate in 2011. I was buying real estate in some areas for 90 cents off, 91 cents off, because, well, nobody was going out and buying. Now, I'm not saying this to brag, but what I'm saying is if you can prepare when times are okay, it can give you the opportunity to capitalize on investment opportunities when times are not okay, because the reality is markets go up and they go down, and people always get blindsided when the economy goes down. People always get blindsided when the markets go down, and then they panic and then they freak out, and then you see a lot of people just selling out of fear. But that also creates opportunity for those who are prepared. And that means you got to prepare when times are okay. Because what's interesting is when I talk about these things, when bad things happen, everybody says, well, how am I supposed to have money now? Well, you don't start preparing when a bad thing happens. You got to start preparing way before the bad thing happens. That way, when a bad thing happens, you can then come in and capitalize on that opportunity. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to continue your financial education journey, I have another video that I think you'll love. All you got to do is click that button right over there. And for those of you who want to stay up to date on the top finance and business news, you can join Market Briefs, my free financial newsletter, by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.